Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to Adrian's Digital Basement 2. Well, not 4, 2. Yep, second channel video. Well, if you're here, you know what you're about to see. And it's an autopsy of this hard card here, the Plus Hardcard. This thing was found inside the IBM 5170 that I've been working on the main channel. And when I plugged it in, it didn't spin up at first. So then I gave it a good old twist because it had some stiction going on. And then once it spun up after doing the old twist, then it sounded weird. And I let it run for a while just to kind of bake the bearings because sometimes the head stepper assembly might have been stuck as well. Well, and unfortunately after that, it really sounded like one of the heads got stuck on the disc or something like that, because it would make a ticking sound as it spun down. You would almost hear it like tick, 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 tick. So I don't know what's going on inside of this thing, but these are incredibly unreliable. I think I did a little bit of reading, and it turns out that the Plus Hardcards are made by Quantum, although it doesn't say that anywhere on here. It just says Plus Development Corporation on that sticker there. So not really too sure, but I just thought it'd be fun to open this thing up. As you can see, it's an ISA card, 8-bit slot. It's all held together with this pretty strong metal chassis thing going on here. It's got a black slot cover, and it slots into the front of your full-size case, which holds it steady. And it was actually just a really easy way to upgrade your non-hard drive equipped machine with a hard drive. There's no power connector on here, if you noticed. It's bus powered. It has a BIOS chip, so it is self-booting. So if you stick it into your, say, IBM 5150 that has only floppy drives, you're gonna get 20 megabytes of hard drive capacity. So it's kind of a cool concept, but for whatever reason, very, very unreliable. I think I mentioned this in the other video. I think I've had one of these that actually worked, that came through the basement here. All the other ones were dead. So I really would like to just see what this looks like on the inside, because I haven't opened one up, and maybe we'll see the head crash that's going on in here. I'm going to be using an iFixit toolkit here, not sponsored or anything. This came from one of my patrons, Paxton. He sent this in. And it's nice to have an actual good tool set for once. I like how you can just pop this right out. It's all held in with magnets. How cool. I already gushed over this in the unboxing mail call video, but I figure some of these tools are going to be useful for getting this hard drive apart. And the reason why I say that is because this cover here appears to be glued on. So I think I'm going to have to use this to try to get under there. Hopefully I won't cut myself in the process. All right, we're gonna need that. I think I can move the rest of this out of the way here. All right, so first off, there is a little cover right here that I had off. Why isn't it coming off? Come on, there we go. All right, so this little cover hides the connections here to the drive. So there is a 4-wire one here, which I'm assuming is probably the motor spindle. And then there's a small 2-pin flat flex. And this one here, it's like a 6-pin, and then a multi-pin one. And when I was doing diagnostics on this drive, I did try checking these, unplugging them, plugging them back in, just to make sure that that wasn't a problem. And that didn't really make any kind of difference. I mean, obviously if I unplug this motor spindle one, the drive wouldn't spin anymore. But the other ones just made it act a little weird. But plugging them back in, it just went back to exactly the way it was operating initially. Actually, while I'm zoomed up close, let's just take a look here. So this is Plus branded, as is this IC. We have 2 crystals sitting on top of each other, just stuck together with a little bit of adhesive there. So that's kind of interesting. This is a 2764, it's written right there. And then here's a 27128. So what's interesting, actually, it's got 2 different ROM chips, which is a bit unusual. Now this board obviously has all the electronics to run the hard drive itself, but also has what it needs to interface to the ISA bus. So you can kind of see that this flat pack IC here is going to the ISA connector. So this is mainly doing that interconnection. And the rest of this obviously is for controlling the drive. Well, not obvious, but that's probably what's going on. I'd imagine this is like an 8-bit IDE kind of a thing. That probably simplifies a lot of the electronics here. And on the back, there's not much going on, just lots of passives and a couple semiconductors on here, diodes or transistors or whatnot. And I assume this here is the date code, 1986, 27th week. So it's definitely an old drive, but I have plenty of other hard drives that are this age that still work. So like it goes back to what I was saying, that these Plus things are just extra unreliable. So I think I'm going to start by trying to take the hard drive out of here. So even though this is unreliable, it's certainly not like a build quality problem because this thing is put together really well. Everything is in really good shape. There's no corrosion. There are little rubber isolated mounts here between the hard drive and this chassis that holds it, and they're still soft and pliable. So even though it's from 1986, it's pretty cool that whatever rubber they picked, really good quality. Oh, there we go. The hard drive just popped right out. So there it is. There's that metal chassis. It's nice and strong. I mean, sure, there's a little bit of flex. Sturdy thing. Let's see it here. I have a magnet. Is this ferrous metal? And yes, it is. So it's actually steel or something like that. Okay, here is the hard drive. So it's got this black trim stuck on here. Try to get this off. All right, well, I just assumed that this was trim and nothing more, but there's actually stuff going on underneath here. All right, so cool. So like I said, this was the motor control signal. It actually has a controller right there. And I'm not up to speed on my motor terminology, but this is obviously like an induction motor of some kind using permanent magnets. And this IC here is what does all the good stuff. Probably has a Hall effect sensor, feeds back to this somehow, maybe, or something, or they're internal. It's probably internal, and that's what keeps the speed perfectly regulated. So this IC does that. I mean, I don't know, there are 4 wires here, so maybe there's an RPM signal along with the power that feeds this thing. All right, flipping this over, I need to try to get this this black trim off the top here. So I want to try to do this without cutting myself. The reason for getting this off, and it's really adhered very strongly, is the screws are covered underneath there. They did not want this to come off. Figured I'd need to get underneath here because there would be something holding down the head stepper. So I'm assuming, let's see how this is. Yeah, okay, so the disc is here, spins underneath this sticker here. This is probably for the head stepper assembly, something like that. Just trying to lift this up here. Kind of typical construction. I mean, 3.5-inch hard drives in 1986, I think they were a thing, but this was probably relatively cutting edge at the time to have such a thin hard drive like this. For 1986, that's probably just around the time that these started to happen. But yeah, not kind of neat. Anyways, just normal Phillips for the screws here. So let me get those out. And all the screws are out. So now there's like a trim piece on here. Get this off. And it's looking very much like a normal hard drive. So let me get the iFixit spudger in here. Just go around the edge here. It's got like a foam. You know what, there's enough. I can get the screwdriver in there now, or I can just lift it with my fingers. All right, are we ready to see inside the the Plus 20 Hardcard. Here we go. Well, that's not what I expected. There's a plastic, the top disc is plastic. All right, so on the top lid here, nothing much to speak of. There's this thing here. What is that? Oh, it's an air filter. All right, so as it sits in the corner here, as the disc spins, obviously shoots the air in there, and that has a little like foam thing in there to catch any of the dust that might be inside the hard drive. All right, well, things are kind of interesting in here. I am actually relatively surprised. What is that? There's a loose piece floating around. Okay, I'm sure that came out when I took it apart, so I doubt that was floating around in there. I'll use some tweezers here. Okay, so yeah, it was just a washer. Probably was, I wouldn't be surprised if it was actually right on top of here, between there and this this part moves right here. So the way this is designed is just different. If you've ever opened up a hard drive before, usually the pivot point for the head is like somewhere like here, and the heads move in and out of the disk. But this is like, has magnets here, so this is the voice coil under here. This is what moves the heads. Pivots on this point. There's all this extra weight here. There's like a, I don't know, a weight, so to speak. I guess it's extra weight. And then the arm goes over here, and there's the read-write heads right there. So that obviously moves in and out that way. So this whole thing kind of pivots like this. So it's got two read-write heads under there, and it has this plastic disc on the top, which I'm assuming is because you could have a 40 meg version. Oh, it's not plastic, is it? That's actually metal. So it looks like you can have another stack of read-write heads on top there, so you can have 4, and then that would be the extra disc would be an actual magnetic disc, not this placeholder, which I guess is maybe just to keep the balance going, or the motor is just used to having a certain amount of weight, so they have to make sure it's got the same amount every time. I don't know. So these flat flex cables come through here, and it looks like this has actually got an IC on it right there. So that's mounted on the cable. Now I can't say like what actually fails on this thing, and like I said, they're always dead. They often spin, but they don't actually work. So perhaps it is something like in the flat flex that dies. I mean, I think I just tore it, so it's definitely dead, but this thing was already dead. So I'm just gonna start taking out screws here so we can kind of get a closer look at this assembly. Actually, you know what? Let me start by taking this screw out here so we can take this fake disc off the top. I have to hold this while I torque this. There we go. Oh, that's not easy. I'm gonna wedge a screwdriver in here to try to keep this from spinning. There we go, that works. You know what, this might be reverse thread, actually. Let's try it the other way. Yep, reverse thread. You have to go clockwise to actually loosen it. How funny, how cool. Okay, so reverse thread. Let's see if we can get this disc off. Maybe we can see a problem underneath. There's this little speck right here. Is that something that got there from my brute force opening? Or is this something that was there already? Let me see if I can move it. No, that moves. So that was just something that happened when I opened this thing up. Anyhow, you can see that it's a pretty typical hard drive platter. Obviously, it's low density. This thing here, I suppose, what does this do? I don't know. This thing here does something. Obviously, it moves maybe from the wind generated, the air generated. Let's look at the bottom of this. No, it's pretty much flat. And the heads don't move right now. Okay, they do move. Okay, I can see interesting stuff going on. So the voice coil assembly here moves the heads back and forth, and it's like there's an optical sensor right here, and this is like a piece of glass with very fine lines in it. So as the heads move back and forth, it's able to track exactly where the head is. And of all these various flat flex cables that come off the drive, it's this one right here, this 6-pin one that goes down to a little flex PCB down there. It's got some ICs on it that then connects to this optical sensor. This flat flex here with this IC, this is actually going to the read-write heads themselves. So it's this multi-pin connector here. That's the data that coming off the heads, the magnetic information. But yeah, so that's an optical sensor. I mean, I've taken apart lots of hard drives. I really don't remember seeing an optical sensor. It's almost like the newer drives, they can tell by resetting the head back to, you know, a home position, and then they move the head back and forth, and it can track where the head is based on information on the disk, like sector or hard-coded information that's already written on there. And then they're able to, you know, precisely control the head. This thing, on the other hand, it needs this kind of very optically finely graduated glass. There's definitely a piece of glass, and yeah, it's not going to be visible in the camera, but there are very thin lines, very, very thin lines that allow this sensor to detect exactly where it is. Now the head feels like it's stuck, like it's parked right now. See if I can move this again. Oh, I see. Okay. Right. So this thing is the head parking, I don't know, whatever, something or other, this thing. Once it, this head goes into that position is the park position. And this thing, obviously, when the drive starts spinning, the air movement from the spinning drive, as I'm sure it spins clockwise, that moves this thing like this, and that releases the head. But right now, it's actually stuck, right? See, it's not moving. But if I move this thing, there we go. Now the head is unlocked. So like that, it's in a locked position. And moving this way, and is now unlocked. So interesting. So it doesn't self-park, obviously, because I was running this thing, and I powered it off and didn't put the heads in the park position. Although that could be because maybe the whole head movement thing was bad, like the I guess this is the connection to the voice coil. This single 2 wires here goes down here. Maybe not, because there's this flat flex here. It has 3 wires in it. Not quite sure, but anyhow, yeah, that's interesting. Okay, so let's unpark the heads. Move that. So the heads can't unload from the disk. They're always on the disk. So that probably is one thing that contributes to stiction. A lot of hard drives, modern hard drives, actually unload the heads. There's like a little assembly where it slides the heads and it lifts them off the disk, so they don't get stuck on the disk itself. So right now, if I spin the motor, it doesn't turn the disk. It's free, so it's not being clamped anymore. See, I can lift it up. But what I'm not sure is how to get it out exactly, because the problem is I'm just going to have to break the read-write heads off, I guess. I know this is a destructive process. Sorry about that to everyone who's cringing right now. Actually, I can use my little tool set here to get these screws out. There we go. That's the right size. All right, that took off this little thing here, which, I don't know, does something. But I can get the heads off now. What I want to see is the underside of the disc. I just want to see if there's a crash or a scratch or anything going on there, because it just definitely sounded bad. So there's the top read-write head. Move that out of the way. I don't feel like taking the clip off of this parking thing, so this will be just torn off. Let me just flip this over and get the disc out. All right, there's the underside of the disc. And you know what? It really looks perfect. I'm not seeing anything wrong here. There's a little bit of dust here, but that moves. So that was not permanently attached. So the noise that it made when it was spinning up and down, where it's like a ticking sound, I don't know, maybe that was just the motor itself, not the disc. So there's the motor. Oh, this thing is just incredible. I mean, 1986, and look at the precision engineering that went into this in 1986. No wonder why these things were so expensive. I mean, it's amazing how inexpensive hard drives are now. You can buy like a 4 terabyte hard drive in the retail market for 60, 70 bucks. There's a lot of incredibly precisely engineered and manufactured things inside of a hard drive. Like the tolerances are so fine, especially nowadays with 4 terabytes of storage compared to 20 megabytes on this thing. There are the read-write heads. There's just a very fine little wire that runs off of them there. It's just amazing. They both look completely fine. There's like a little spot there. Yeah, there's nothing obviously wrong in here. Everything seems fine. So let me try to get these magnets apart here. I think I'm going to have to get the magnet out first. It should be free now. All right, there we go. All right, so looking in here, we got some interesting things. So this is the voice coil. So this 2-pin flat flex here is what powers the voice coil off the main board. Interesting is it has 2 wires coming off the main board, and then there's a connection there, and then you see I saw 3 wires running down the cord, and that's because it grounds from here to this moving part of the assembly right here. So that's, I guess, an extra ground lead. I think I can lift the entire head assembly right out at this point. It's still all attached to the flat flex here, so let me just take that off. So there it is. There is the read-write assembly. The heads are flopping around, but very unusual, right? I mean, compared to modern hard drives, it's different. And there is that there's that glass there with those fine lines. Let me see if I can show that on camera. I have no idea if the lines are actually showing up. So one thing I'm noticing is the bearing in here, which rides on this shaft here. It's very, very sticky. I think that might have been the problem, to be honest, is I think the bearing is just gummed up. And the voice coil here and the magnets, it just wasn't enough to overpower or overcome the friction of this bearing. It's really, really, it's really bad. I mean, I don't know what it should be like. And obviously when it's screwed in, there's like a preload on it and whatever, but it barely turns. It is turning, but I mean, not what I would expect. Like this bearing doesn't sound great. It's a bit noisy, but at least it's turning freely. This one, on the other hand, not at all. So that probably explains what was going on. The drive would spin up, and it was trying to move the head assembly, and I could hear sounds of it trying to move, which was obviously the voice coil energizing against the magnets. I just don't think it had enough energy in the coil and with these magnets to actually move this. And that is also because I don't think these are like the neodymium type that are in more modern hard drives. They're white. I mean, it's painted, I guess, but this is almost like a standard magnet. It's almost like this is just a normal ferrous type magnet, the kind that if you bump them, they chip and everything. And yeah, I mean, this is a magnetic screwdriver here, and that is not strong at all. I mean, it's a magnet, all right, but not like the rare earth or the neodymiums that are in more modern hard drives that move the head much faster. So not strong magnets, gummed up bearing probably explains what was going on exactly. What's happening? Where'd this black stuff come from? And then right here, we can kind of see this optical sensor a little bit. Okay, the magnet, that was sticking. There's a little complicated thing going on here to be able to read those lines in that glass. But yeah, there's even some adjustment like pots, some fine, we got 4 trimmer pots right here. And we're taking a look at this assembly here. So there's an LED, or maybe it's a combo LED plus sensor, and it bounces off this, which is actually a mirror. Just trying to get this where you can see it. It's a mirror that's at an angle. So it shoots off there, shoots down through the glass, and then there's a mirror down here. You know what though? That actually has electronics under here. See this flat flex feeds underneath there? So that must actually be a sensor. So this is probably just an LED, shoots infrared through that, and this actually picks up the movement of the head. Pretty cool, very interesting, very optical and different. Not what I would have expected in here. Oh, and I just realized what this is from. Take a look at this right here. There is very sticky, gooey rubber right here that has turned absolutely disgusting. Oh, that's probably right there. That in combination with the bearing, it's sticky. I bet you, oh, you know what? And actually, the position the heads were in when I opened the cover, they were not parked. It was stuck the other way. Actually, I moved it and I could feel it. It was stuck, and then it released. And I thought it was just magnetic, stuck like through the magnets or whatever. It was actually stuck on this. It's a bumper that when the heads hit their stop, it doesn't clunk loudly, boom, and hit that as the home stop. But the problem is, because that's now this horrible sticky rubber, the head assembly bumps into that and then just gets stuck. So maybe if I had hit the thing hard enough, it would have released the heads to work a little bit. But the problem is, I bet you every time it turns on, it probably bumps into that stop, if it can overcome that bad bearing, and then that will just get stuck again. So right there, that rubber there is definitely the death sentence to these drives, and is probably exactly why all of the ones I get through the basement of this type are all dead. And look, it's getting on my fingers as well. It's the same stuff that those rubber belts are made out of in cassette decks and VCRs that just disintegrate and turn to that horrible, sticky, gross stuff. Let me just wipe it on the magnet here, see if it, yeah, look, it's like leaving its residue behind. Oh boy. So there we have it. Tear down an autopsy of a Plus hard drive. It's unfortunate that that rubber deteriorates. It basically is going to mean that every single one of these is going to be dead. That and the bearings that go bad. But the bearing might be okay, but that rubber definitely kills this drive. So if you found this interesting, I'd appreciate a thumbs up. But if you didn't, you know what to do. It's a second channel, so I'd appreciate a thumbs up. Or I'm sorry, I'd appreciate a subscribe. That little bell icon really helps me out on the second channel. Big thanks to all my patrons for supporting me on both channels. And of course, Justin brought this IBM 5170 down, which had this hard card in it. And yeah, that's going to be it. Stay healthy, stay safe. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.